Hello and welcome to today's campfire session. My name is Dr. Tamara and I am a medical biohacker. So today I'm going to share some secrets with you on how you can hack your health and your life and your energy and your sleep so that you can feel young and agile and mentally alert well into your 90s and feel as if you're still in your 20s. So I'd like you to take a moment to just look around you. If you're sitting alone, think about your family and your friends. Think about how beautifully unique they are, how they dress differently, how they act differently, their sense of humor, how different they all look, how they respond to you. And now I want you to dive a little bit deeper right into your cells and think how unique you must be on the inside if you're that unique on the outside. That's what we do with medical biohacking. We map your whole genetic system and your biochemistry, and we find the perfect lifestyle just designed for you. Now imagine if, just like this, by waving a magic wand, you could immediately improve your health and your well-being. Imagine we could directly impact and reverse chronic disease and be as healthy and fit and good-looking at 70 as you were at 30. Stay free from disease all of our lives, right until the very end, and extend that youthful health span, that feeling of being young, decades or even centuries longer than we have been able to do before. There was a really interesting study done on centenarians, people who die after the age of 100. And what they found was that centenarians spend only 1/3 on healthcare compared to people who die between 60 and 80. Curious, right? The reason is that they have an incredibly healthy health span. What I mean by health span is that they are healthy and agile and mentally alert and completely independent all the way up until their late 90s, early 100s, and they only start to decline in health in their last 2 to 5 years, and that happens relatively quickly. Now that's very different from what's going on today. Today, we are seeing people getting stronger and fitter until the age of 25, and then gradually getting weaker and slower and sicker and in more pain for 30, 40, 50 years until they pass away. Now, that's no fun for anyone. Not only is it expensive financially, but it's expensive on the well-being of your family, on your emotional health, and the time you can spend with everybody around you. Another interesting thing that came out when we did the study on centenarians is that 50% of them were overweight, 60% of them were smokers, and 2% of them were vegetarians. So what does that tell us? The one-size-fits-all structure of medicine is very, very old science. We can't do that anymore. One person who smokes until 90 could live a very healthy lifestyle because they have the genes and the biochemistry to deal with the toxins. But we could have somebody else who only through secondhand smoke could get lung cancer. So we need to get to know you intimately at that level. We live in such an exciting time. We live in the midst of an incredible scientific revolution where we are on the verge of breaking that cusp of research, where we can extend health span dramatically to 200 and beyond. The problem is that there's just so much research out there. It's all over the media, all over blogs. We don't know where to find it, and we don't know what to trust. We don't know who's funding the research. How do we get all this information together? And that is our first challenge. What I'd like us to understand as we go through this journey together is the stages of medicine. The first stage of medicine and the way we treated patients was we waited for you to get sick. Once you were sick, we had a diagnosis. Once we had a diagnosis, we knew which plaster would fit that wound to make you feel better. We were, however, not focusing on health, we were focusing on sickness. We then moved towards health and wellness. And health and wellness was much more focused on you as a person, and we were focused on you being well and not waiting for you to get sick. Now we get into medical biohacking. This is advanced preventative medicine. What we can do here is if we can map your specific biochemistry and your genetic profile, then we can design your diet and lifestyle and your habits and the way you exercise and all of these things. If we can focus on your particular biochemistry and genetics, then we can design your beautiful, perfect, unique lifestyle to optimize your genes and to give you the best life going forward. What's really interesting when we look at genetics is that we found that only 25% of you getting your predisposed diseases, that is when your grandmother had diabetes, so your mom had diabetes, so you had diabetes, and your children have diabetes, only 25% of that is genetic. 75% is diet and lifestyle, which means two things. We have an incredibly exciting opportunity to change our health destiny, but we also have a massive responsibility to just cut that short and change the destiny of future generations. I want you to imagine your health almost like a bucket. I know it sounds strange, but imagine a yellow bucket made out of metal, painted beautifully and perfectly, sitting in your garden. In the beginning, it is spectacular, it is flawless. But over time, as it rains, the sun beats down on it, a few soccer balls get kicked into it every now and then, someone trips over it, it changes plants. Ever so slightly, you start to see paint chipping off. The color starts to fade. Eventually, those dents become holes and rust starts to appear. And then it starts to leak. And eventually, the leaking becomes so bad that you can't really use it as a bucket anymore. This is what we're doing with medical biohacking. By testing your unique genetic pathways, we can identify and predict exactly where those dents are going to be, where the rust is going to form, where the paint will start to chip, if it will start to fade or change color. And we have 75% chance of redesigning your life so that those things don't happen, so that you can be agile and full of life and full of energy and mentally alert well into your 90s as well. So the secret is in analyzing and studying your unique map and designing your perfect life according to it. We do very detailed biochemical mapping, and we do genetic pathway mapping now, which is quite a new thing, and it's very, very exciting. The way we used to teach and test genes was that we would delete one gene and then see what happened. And then we would know what that gene did. But what happened after a while was that if we took a group and we deleted that gene, we would see that some would get symptoms and some wouldn't. And some would even do even better. And the reason is that genes work in a pathway, and so does your biochemistry. So to test one genetic snip at a time, one genetic mutation, it's really old science. So we are testing genetic pathways, biochemical pathways, and seeing how every single manipulation is having a butterfly effect across your entire genetic and biochemical map. We do much more detailed medical workups when we do a consultation with patients. We want to know every single piece of your puzzle, and the more pieces of the puzzle we have, even if they don't seem important, are going to put that bigger picture together for us. So now we've come to a point in research where we're looking at reversing aging and slowing it down drastically. I'd like to know how many of you have wondered to yourselves, if only I could relive my 20s with the wisdom of my 50s and 60s. I know I've thought that. This is the opportunity that we're giving you. We're getting ready to deep dive into the current research into living to 200 and beyond. It's closer than you think. It's the science of looking and feeling as young as you did in your 20s, right up until your 90s and even your 100s. This means that you can literally relive your younger years with the physical and mental strength and agility that you had then, but with the wisdom that you have now. What we are looking at now is not only the biochemical and genetic pathways, but we are looking at 7 different areas where we can start to clean up the accumulative damage of aging. By doing this, we are stopping it from ever getting to the point where it causes the damaging effects that lead to the aging process. Isn't that incredible? The areas that we're looking at are genetic mutations that start to increase with age. We're looking at mitochondrial mutations. Mitochondria are one of my biggest passions. We are the energy centers of our cells. They produce over 97% of our energy, but they do so much more. And we'll be talking about that in another campfire later on. We're talking about getting rid of all that intracellular junk. So every time a pathway happens, every time we produce energy, every time our cells speak to each other, we produce a little bit of excess waste. And we become less and less able to clean up that waste. If we can find a way to go in once every 6 months or every year for a tune-up and clean up that waste, it should never get to that level where it's causing the damage. We are also looking at extracellular waste and ways to regenerate cells. So I don't know if you've heard of the Mexican salamander and certain jellyfish that you can cut off a limb and they will grow it back perfectly. They even took the brain out of a Mexican salamander and it regrew its brain perfectly. We are looking at ways and already have tools that we're able to regenerate cells in that manner. Not quite to that extent, but the science is almost there. We're also looking at cellular senescence. These are cells that have stopped replicating but haven't been taken away by the body or died off. And they send out signals that are bad for the cells. And then one of our last ones is glycation. Now, glycation is also something that we can have so much control over. Glycation occurs when there's too much sugar in the body. And what that does is the sugar molecules paste together your 2 elastic or 2 collagen molecules, and they render them inelastic. Now, elasticity is so important for all of us. It's important not only for mobility of our joints, not only for the elasticity of our arteries so that we can keep our blood pressure in control, not only about wrinkles, but about so many other things. Now, if we cut down sugar and carbohydrates in our diet, we have a good chance of not producing these things, which are very aptly named AGEs, advanced glycation end products. What we are looking at now is, once they are formed, is there any way that we can break them apart and reverse the damage that we've already done? So we spoke about the first challenge in getting all this information together and trusting the sources we're getting them from. But the second challenge we have is that this science and this research of living to 200 and beyond, this research of seeing us as a super complicated car where we can go in for a service and literally clean up all the accumulative damage and feel 30 again from when we're 60 and not feel 60 again until we're 90, that research is 5 to 10 years away. What we have the power to do is to stay healthy enough and to know our genetics and to know our biochemistry and design our lifestyles accordingly, so that when that research becomes available, when it is safe for us all to use, we are healthy enough to take advantage of it. So what tools do we have available today? What are the things that you can do today to make this change, to start this biohacking process? The first thing is that we're looking at those genetic pathways, not single genetic genes that we spoke about earlier. These are going to show your strong and your weak points. They're going to show where in that bucket it's going to start to rust, where the holes are going to come, if the color is going to fade, and we can start to stop those things from happening. We are working with epigenetics in that sphere, and that is that area where we spoke about where 25% is genetic, but 75% is diet and lifestyle. So we can start hacking into your diet and lifestyle today. the advanced biochemistry, so go to your doctors, find a doctor that knows all about functional and integrative medicine, and if you can, find a doctor that's versed in biogerontology, which is the fancy word for medical biohacking, so that they can start to do this advanced biochemistry on you. Stem cell treatments to regenerate tissues are already available today. Ways to increase our number of mitochondria, to make more energy, to get rid of intracellular waste, to build more muscle, to burn more fat, to help us have more energy to make better decisions, to almost reverse aging, that's already available today. Cellular detox with activating certain genetic pathways is already available. And reducing and reversing those advanced glycation end products, those sugar guys that we spoke about earlier. So what you can do today is find a doctor that really specializes in integrative and functional medicine. Even better, find a doctor that specializes in advanced preventative medicine, someone who has studied nutrigenomics and genetics. And if you're really lucky, find a medical biohacker. And the fancy term for that is somebody who has studied biogerontology. Get your genetic pathways tested, not just your single mutations. Make the changes in your diet. Make the changes in your exercise routine. Take the supplements you need to optimize your outcomes. Those little steps that you take every day are taking you one step closer to the little old man or lady that is sore and frail and dependent, or one step closer to the strong, agile, mentally alert 90-year-old who is still running their own household and running their own farm. And that's the one you want to be. So find that beautiful uniqueness that is you and celebrate it completely. Thank you so much for your time and for joining me on this journey and opening your mind up to this whole new world and taking these action steps to feel your best self. You deserve to look and feel as young and agile as you can until a very old age. I look forward to seeing you at the next campfire.